requirements of the open meeting.
Sorry.
That's all right. We'll try again. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being broadcast at a later date over the Lunenburg Public Access channel and on the Lunenburg Access Facebook page, and will be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. So I will call this meeting to order at 6:06. I have no chair's report tonight, so we can start with public comments about our agenda items. If you are on Zoom and you have a public comment, would you please use your raise your hand? I see no one raising a hand, and I did receive no emails, just so you know, as I had invited people last evening, but there was limited access to the meeting last night. So I understand that. So we have new business, one item on our agenda, the Test and Stay program. So Dr. Burnham and Mrs. McGuire.
All right, so let me attempt to screen share. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay. Just as a point of information, these slides were sent out by email to all families and all staff just prior to the meeting, probably within the last 20 minutes or so. We also have these posted under the school committee link on our district website. And also these slides will be available on the main page of our website as well. So I'm going to go through the slides, and then I'm sure that there will be questions that you might have, and depending on the nature of the question, Mrs. McGuire is here. I can also answer questions, as well as Mr. Cassidy. So we're here this evening on an emergency special meeting of the school committee to talk about the brand new testing program that was released in the media on Tuesday, and a webinar with the state relative to the new program was held yesterday. So we took some time to gather together some additional information so that we could make an informed recommendation for your consideration this evening. And why won't my slides advance? What is happening? Let me see if I can grab a PDF version.
If you're having trouble, Dr. Burnham, I can give it a shot.
Yeah, for some reason, my slides don't always advance. Okay, so let me see if I can. Okay, can we see the PDF version here?
Yeah, yes.
All right, so first we'll start off by sharing some information that was provided on the COVID testing webinar yesterday, hosted by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. What they conveyed is that our schools are safe. Last fall, DESE initiated a test and stay to keep close contacts in school using repeated daily testing rather than quarantine. This program did put a strain on the school health staff. They recognize that. Our staff have worked very hard to keep up with all of the contact tracing and the repeated daily testing through test and stay. What they now know 4.5 months into a test and stay program and review of the data, hundreds of thousands of results across the state yielded more than 98% negative tests. So we know that it's overwhelmingly safe to keep students in school. Secondary transmission. Nationwide data related to test and stay programs was examined to determine the extent to which secondary transmission, that's the transmission between close contacts, is occurring in school. The evidence from California and Illinois cited by the CDC in their test to stay guidance noted that secondary transmission rates are less than 1.5%. Test positivity rates in test and stay indicate that individuals identified as close contacts in school are very unlikely to contract or spread COVID-19. Other states like Connecticut and Vermont have recently transitioned from individualized contact tracing to the use of at-home tests and focusing school health efforts on symptomatic testing. The new COVID testing option has been designed to optimize in-person learning. Districts and schools participating in symptomatic and/or pooled testing may choose to continue those testing strategies and discontinue contact tracing and test and stay. We are not one of those districts. We have not been participating in symptomatic testing or pooled testing. Using their professional discretion, school health professionals may determine if specific situations warrant contact tracing. Districts and schools that elect to make this change will be provided with rapid antigen at-home tests for all participating staff and students, and they can be used on a weekly basis. This would be our district. We would be electing to opt into this new testing model. So the new option, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Department of Public Health recommend that districts or schools select this new option. And if they choose to implement it, they must notify their local boards of health. This new option is only available to districts or schools that continue or start symptomatic or pooled testing. Districts and schools that choose to maintain test and stay will continue contact tracing and will not be eligible to receive rapid antigen at-home tests. So our choice to make, we have two options. We can continue with test and stay, which would require us to continue contact tracing, and it makes us ineligible to receive those at-home rapid antigen tests for our staff and students. Or we can suspend the test and stay program and participate in either symptomatic testing or pooled testing. This would allow us to stop the test and stay program, which we cannot do until we have all the materials necessary to start symptomatic or pooled testing. We would be able to stop contact tracing. We would be able to distribute those at-home COVID test kits, 2 tests in a kit, and those would be provided to students and staffs that opt in. It's a choice. Test symptomatic staff and students, or conduct pooled testing, which is a random sampling weekly. And either of those options, symptomatic testing or pooled testing, require signed consent. So our recommendation, after consulting with Dr. Lyons, our medical director, and the Lunenburg Public School nursing staff, we recommend that the district suspend the test and stay program, and implement symptomatic or diagnostic testing of students and staff. And we would do so following the Mass DPH and DESE guidance. Access to symptomatic testing does not replace the need for a parent to consult their child's primary care provider. We feel that this is very important. So a little bit about symptomatic testing. It does require a signed consent from the parent or guardian and any staff member that is seeking a symptomatic diagnostic COVID test. It will provide the nursing staff with another tool to assess students presenting with mild symptoms. And a negative test will enable students presenting with mild symptoms or staff presenting with mild symptoms while at school. This is important, symptoms onset during school. Testing will allow them to remain in school with a negative test. Participation in the symptomatic testing program will allow us to distribute home tests to staff and students. The home test distribution requires staff, parent, guardian to opt in to the program. And in so doing, they are agreeing to report when they have a positive test result. It's important to note here, there is no signed consent necessary for the at-home testing. Just parents need to opt in or staff need to opt in so that we know who we're distributing to. As per the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, when at-home test distribution and symptomatic testing are fully in place, that's when the district will be able to discontinue test and stay and routine contact tracing. However, again, our nurses may choose to contact trace for certain situations of possible exposure. Dr. Lyons and the LPS nursing staff strongly state that students and staff should not come to school if ill. Parents, guardians, and staff will have to continue to conduct a daily symptoms check prior to coming to school. The nursing staff will continue to advocate for parents and guardians to consult with a child's primary care provider. The option of providing an antigen test when students present with symptoms does not replace the need for consultation with the primary care provider. Nurses will assess students, refer to their PCP, and request a return to school note when appropriate. And there are available resources posted on the Department of Ed website relative to protocols for COVID-19 scenarios and different flow charts for those scenarios. So that, again, we looked at the possibility of pooled testing. We looked at the possibility of symptomatic testing. And we feel that symptomatic testing is, number one, going to get us more valuable information in order to keep sick staff and students out of school and home to recover. And we also have the sense that this is the direction that the state is headed a little bit down the road. Mrs. McGuire, is there anything that you want to add before we start taking questions?
No, not at this time.
Carol,
Carol,
you're
you're muted, Carol.
You would think I would have the hang of this by this time. So I'd open it up so that any member of the committee can ask questions if they have them.
So
Ms. Kelly?
what happens if we have a child who's symptomatic at school and the parent does not want that child tested at school? Will they be called to come pick their child up, or, okay. So that's the easy answer to that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Columbrini has a
Mr.
question.
Yes, Mr. Schoenbrini?
Dr. Burnham, two questions, they're totally unrelated. What is the new testing regime doing about asymptomatic people? So how is that handled? And then the second thing is, do you know the position of the unions that represent the employees? What's their position on the two options?
So this is a complete opt-in program, and this was not, test and stay was not available to all teachers, just those who were identified as a close contact. Katie, are all districts that are doing test and stay, are they testing their teachers as well?
Yeah, any teacher who's a close contact is eligible for test and stay
Right,
if they're not
Um,
vaccinated.
right.
Only
But this,
unvaccinated students and staff are eligible for test and stay. So that kind of confined that program.
exactly. There are fewer and fewer individuals that are now meeting the criteria to be eligible for test and stay. So we're actually testing fewer kids as time goes on. Moving to this model, essentially all of our students and all of our staff have the option of taking a home test every single week.
Yep.
At no cost to them. It's totally their choice whether or not they participate. We're not requiring staff participation. So I actually think that this opens up access to tests for our staff. I know that a lot of our staff have been securing their own tests or going for scheduled periodic tests just to kind of monitor for themselves. But now, weekly, for any of our staff members, teachers, custodians, food service, any of our staff can now have a weekly test available to them. So it does actually, I think, broaden access. Katie, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, the weekly home test is obviously asymptomatics. It's just once a week that the staff and students will be taking that test. And the other part of it, by having the ability to test anyone who's symptomatic, we're covering both symptomatic and asymptomatic.
Anybody else? My only question is among the nursing staff, are they, do most of them agree with this particular option?
Yes, we met yesterday and we discussed this thoroughly, how we feel, which was why we had made that statement as strongly as we did. Our biggest concern is we cannot have sick children coming to school or sick staff coming to school. They need to stay home in the first place. We want to have this ability to test symptomatic children in school or staff and be able to determine whether they need to go home or not. That's a huge, huge imposition for parents to have to come and pick up a child with a minor symptom. So we'll be able to help keep more kids in school. But we cannot open the door to symptomatic kids coming in every day looking to be tested. That's probably the biggest concern we have.
Right. You know, we've had conversations over the last couple of years about the different types of testing programs available. And, you know, our concern was we're a school, we're not a clinic. And we really didn't want to transition into the business of being a clinic. So we've been very careful about analyzing testing options and the benefits, the potential downside, and, you know, to what extent we feel we can manage different options with resources available to us. I think it's really important that we hammer home that the symptomatic testing at school is when someone starts to display symptoms during the day. Something starts at noontime. I'm not feeling right. I think I might have a fever and I do have a scratchy throat. I'm going to go see about getting tested. However, consent is required. So anytime a student goes down to the nurse's office saying, I don't think I feel good, I think I might need to test for COVID, we have to reach out to the parent. We have to obtain consent. Obviously, a staff member would be able to sign consent when they come down to the office. But we're not just going to be, handing out swabs and telling people to have a good day. There's a lot of tracking. There's a lot of administration that has to happen with these programs. We do have to report to the state weekly any positive cases that come from the home testing for staff or for students. We will also have to report the symptomatic tests that come back positive. But I do think, and I don't know, Katie, if you want to speak to this, but our sense is that this is the direction that we're headed.
It
Where
feels
we're
that way.
moving to home testing.
Yeah, it feels that way. In particular, when I saw the slide yesterday referencing what Vermont and Connecticut are doing. They're not doing any of the pool testing. They're just moving toward at-home monitoring, and that their health staff are able to have the access to the symptomatic testing for students. It's how it looks anyway.
So then the parent consent, when it comes to symptomatic testing, it's not like the parent says, okay, if my child should be sick, I want you to test them. It is as the child is presenting the symptoms, they will get a phone call asking for consent.
Yeah, we need the consent beforehand, but we will not be testing any child without calling the parent first and getting a verbal consent besides. We're not going to be treating this any differently than we do most, typically all of the kids that we treat in the health office every day. That we get the parent on the phone, we talk to them, and there's so much more information we need when we're assessing these students. What else is going on? Who else is sick in the household? Does the sibling have strep? Are we going down a COVID road where we should be looking at something different? So there's a lot of things that we will take into consideration, and that's done through a phone call and getting information from the parent. We also talked about the younger students. Obviously, if this is going to be a difficult, traumatic thing for younger kids, we're going to look very carefully at what our threshold for that younger group is going to be, but obviously with parental consent always.
Okay, those are my questions. Anyone else?
Katie, just going off of what you just said, the younger kids obviously are a little bit more difficult. Would it be an option for a parent to come pick up and do the test themselves on the child at home?
Yeah, we'll look at that as we're going forward. I don't want to say, I don't want to say always, never say never, never say always.
Yeah.
But absolutely, we all, yeah.
Okay.
We'll look at it. We'll always look at anything.
Okay, Ms. Shapiro?
Thank you. I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work and careful consideration on this issue. I also wanted to echo Dr. Burnham's sentiments from last night and say that the district nursing staff have truly been heroes these past few years, and you've all made it incredibly easy to trust your judgment through your ongoing caution and care in these tough decisions. So I fully know that you guys are going to do a great job pulling this off, and I trust you fully.
All right, if there are no other questions, do I have a motion to adopt the new testing procedure as outlined this evening? Ms. Kelly?
This is Laura Kelly. I will make a motion that the district suspend the test and stay program and implement the symptomatic testing of students and staff.
And a second? Ms. Shapiro?
This is Sophie Shapiro, and I'll second that motion.
And we need to take a roll call vote.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mr. Schoenbrini,
One question before I vote, if I can vote. My wife tested positive for COVID today. Their kids have not tested positive. I'm not sure if that makes me a conflict of interest in voting on it. So, okay, if it doesn't, then I vote in support of everybody else.
thank you. And Mrs. Ashambo.
Yes. And once again, to reiterate, we thank you so much for once again listening to the commissioner and running and finding out the information and putting things together and somehow having it all put together to present so very quickly. We thank you very much.
And, you know, the state did allow for some time for districts to consider, but I think the sooner that we can move in this direction and get in the queue to be accepted into these other test programs, the sooner we'll have access to those home test kits. And we do feel that that is going to be a significant benefit for families and for staff. So I do appreciate your willingness to have a special meeting to consider this recommendation so that we can actively start pursuing this option.
Okay, terrific. So next on our agenda, a public comment. Is there anyone with the public comment at this point? Mrs. LeBlanc.
Hi, everyone. I love to see you in the, early evening and late at night. I just want to say thank you so much. A couple of really just nice things that you said, Sophie. I really appreciate you, mentioning our nurses and also how all of you are thinking about what they say, are listening to their advice. We trust them wholeheartedly. And Mr. Schoenbrini, you asked about, what the unions were thinking about this. I also appreciate that question. Kate and Mike and I, and with Katie's advice, have worked together consistently through this. And what DESE is suggesting right now, what they're proposing with providing us with some rapid tests is what we asked for a couple weeks ago, kind of, not thinking it was possible, but saying, wouldn't the ideal thing be if we could get access to some rapid tests for our tests and for our students, and just assuming that it wasn't an option. So it's also nice to say, kudos to Governor Baker and to DESE for putting this together and for helping alleviate some of the intense pressure on our nurses. I will echo what you say every time you meet. They are phenomenal. They are working so hard for all of our students, and all of it is really for them to keep them safe, keep them in school, keep them educated, and to keep families safe as well. So thank you all.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? I am seeing nothing on the Zoom. So I would say that I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Mrs. Kelly,
This is Laura Kelly. I will make a motion to adjourn at 6:33 p.m.
and a second, please.
I'll second.
Okay. And a roll call vote?
Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mr. Schoenbrini,
Yes.
and Mrs. Ashambo.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all. We'll get
Thank
working
you.
on this. As soon as we know that we have materials ready to go, we'll push notification out to staff and families.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.